The Wife is First. Volume 1, Planning Ahead. Chapter 16, Lack of Funds. Out in the practice field where the rain poured for 2 hours, Jing Xiao did not speak and did not move. Mu Hanjiang quietly accompanied him, hugging him as they sat in the rain for 2 hours, waiting for his husband to calm down. Only after that, did he drag him into the house to bathe and change clothes. Although Jing Xiao used this alternate property to train soldiers, it was still an imperial residence. It had complete amenities. Moreover, this summer estate even had hot springs. Inside Jing Xiao's living quarters was a rather large hot spring reservoir. However, since it was raining, they couldn't bathe outdoors. They just soaked in the small pool inside the house to drive out the cold. Achoo! As Mu Hanjiang was coaxing Jing Xiao to drink a bowl of ginger soup when he himself sneezed. You should also quickly go drink a bowl. Jing Xiao handed him the ginger soup and took a cloth to towel dry his hair. Only then did he think about the fact that Jun Qing's body foundations were not good since he had suffered hypothermia as a child. Although the spring rain was not cold, since they got soaked in for 2 hours, even an average person would get sick, let alone him. Thinking about this, he hurriedly pushed Mu Hanjiang to go soak in the hot spring pool again for a while. This one's health is very good, seeing the intention of Jing Xiao, Mu Hanjiang said while smiling as he continued, previously, I even kneeled in the rain for 6 hours and didn't even get sick, let alone, seeing Jing Xiao's expression had changed, Mu Hanjiang realized that he had accidentally said too much again and quickly pulled him onto the bed. Because this summer residence was constructed for the purpose of relaxation and rejuvenation, the bed in this villa was more spacious than in his official estate. Jing Xiao crawled a little further into the interior of the bed, moving closer to Mu Hanjiang's side and laid down, his gaze faintly burning with fury as he asked, "Why?" At that time, my wet nurse committed a mistake. I did it in order to protect her. Mu Hanjiang leaned on the layered big cushions at the head of the bed and wrapped the wound on Jing Xiao's hand with medicine and bandages he had found. Isn't it very common for children to be punished with kneeling for a long time? At that time, the son of his wet nurse was caught pilfering things from the estate and Madame Du wanted to throw both mother and son out of the Marquis estate. When he had fallen into the icy pond that year, it was this wet nurse who took care of him without rest and actually saved his life. Madame Du did not want to give her a way out and ultimately find him, the illegitimate son, as an eyesore. Thus, he was punished with kneeling for 6 hours for intervening until his grandmother couldn't stand to watch anymore and finally saved the wet nurse and her son, but only to send them out to live in her village. Jing Xiao heard this and the corner of his mouth twitched up into a bitter smile. Yes, I've also been sent to kneel down in front of Qinzheng Hall for a day and a night. Mu Hanjiang covered the person next to him with a quilt and slid into the blankets himself. Then using one hand to support his head, he laid on his side to look at him and asked, "For 1 day and 1 night?" Prince Cheng was a legitimate son of a legitimate wife. Unexpectedly, he also wasn't able to pass his days getting everything he wished for. At that time, I insisted on going to the military camps. Imperial father said that if I could kneel in front of the Qinzheng Hall for a full day and night, then he would let me go. Jing Xiao mockingly laughed at himself. Without imperial mother protecting us, both mine and my brother's lives in the palace was not even as good as that of the eldest prince from the favorite concubine. At that time, I only thought about wanting to lead troops, wanting to hold authority over the military, in order to kill those people who bullied me. Mu Hanjiang knitted his eyebrows and placed his hand on the top of Jing Xiao's head, gently stroking his head but did not speak. The gentle touch made Jing Xiao feel so comfortable and his eyes closed. He took a deep breath and smelled the faint fragrance of Jun Qing, which gradually calmed down his fury. When I was a child, Imperial Mother would personally sew robes for me, and also make especially delicious osmanthus cake. Once, I ruined her favorite orchids and she gave me a beating, but I still hadn't started crying yet when she started crying herself. She hugged me while asking if I'm hurt. As he talked, Jing Xiao's eyes grew moist. Real men do not cry tears easily, but it was merely because they have not yet come across a point in which they were deeply hurt. An unyielding person like Jing Xiao, when he let his tears flow, it increasingly caused others to feel sorry for him. Mu Hanjiang looked at this kind of Jing Xiao and only felt incomparable tenderness. He slowly lowered his head and dropped a light kiss between his tightly knitted eyebrows. Jing Xiao opened his eyes to look at him. Then, he turned over and buried his face into Mu Hanjiang's chest, afraid of him looking at him when he was in such a sorry state. Mu Hanjiang laid down while hugging him and gently stroked his back, just like he was placating a wounded little animal, very patiently lightly stroking him over and over again. The exhausted Jing Xiao gradually fell asleep under such tender treatment. Xiao Xiao, you are going to have a little brother or sister soon. Even if there will be a little brother or sister, Xiao Xiao is still Imperial Mother's favorite child. She's bleeding. She's bleeding a lot. Who is screaming? Where is Imperial Mother? Xiao, it's all right. It's all over now. It's all in the past. Whose voice is that? It's so nice to hear. The bloody scene that filled his eyes gradually dissipated, leaving only a gentle face, whose smile seemed incomparably handsome in the cool spring rain, looking at him. The nightmare did not appear again, and in his misty dreamland, there was only peace left. The next day, when Jing Xiao woke up while the person who comforted him all night remained asleep. Raising his head to look at the peacefully sleeping man, he thought of that tender and gentle kiss last night, and now he pondered over it. Although he only kissed between his eyebrows, it still made his heart skip incessantly. He slowly scooted himself over and dropped a kiss below his eye, where there was a faint trace of blue. Mu Hanjiang slowly opened his eyes and saw a handsome face that was almost within reach. As a result, he was dazed for a moment before he slowly became clear-headed. Your Highness. I said it before that you are not allowed to call me Your Highness in private, or I'll punish you with one kiss for each time. Jing Xiao discontentedly and placed a heavy kiss on his lips. Mu Hanjiang received this punishment while blushing red. How come this person was so persistent about names? But just calling you with one single word Xiao is quite awkward, and you also don't have a courtesy name. Then, do you have a childhood nickname? Imperial Mother and elder brother both call me Xiao Xiao. A certain imperial prince provided his childhood nickname with such thick face. Hearing this sticky and intimate name, it caused him to get chills. Mu Hanjiang's mouth twitched. He turned away and lightly laughed. Xiao Xiao. Little spoon. This name is really not bad. It's Xiao Xiao. Jing Xiao resentfully exclaimed. Xiao Xiao, then I will call you that from now on. Mu Hanjiang patted his head and began to get dressed without another glance. Jing Xiao's eyes widened. Is he being teased by his wife? Asterisk. When Jing Xiao returned to Prince Cheng's estate, he was stopped by Steward Yun asking him how to deal with the consequences of yesterday's incident in the city when they were rushing through on the horse. Mu Hanjiang unhelpfully returned to the east courtyard to catch up for his lost sleep. Your Highness, the things you had me investigate, I received some information about it. After he had finished a pile of tasks, only then did Steward Yun raise the matter of the news he had just received. Regarding the reason why the prince consort fell into an icy pond when he was young. The servants at the Marquis of Beiwei's estate were switched once every 3 years. As this matter had happened a while ago, many of the people who knew of the incident were not in the residence anymore, and even if there were still some there, this matter was also something that they had to keep quiet about. It seemed as if this matter was something that was forbidden to be known outside of the Marquis of Beiwei's estate. The people that Steward Yun sent had to go through many difficulties, asking around about the wet nurse that had cared for Mu Hanjiang when he was a child, and unexpectedly in one of the farming villages that the old Marquioness of Beiwei owned, they finally managed to get the complete story straight out from the lips of that old wet nurse. At that time, the old Marquioness of Beiwei gave each of her grandsons a fur cloak. Mu Lingbao was given a fox fur and Mu Hanjiang a rabbit fur. Because Mu Hanjiang was born with good looks, Mu Lingbao felt that the cloak that his younger brother was wearing was better than his, so he insisted on snatching it. During the struggle, Mu Lingbao pushed him into the lotus pond. At that time, there were also two male cousins present. The three children raucously held the snatched cloak and ran, leaving only the barely 3 years old Mu Hanjiang, who was trapped in the thin ice struggling in the pond. Fortunately, his wet nurse rushed over and swiftly fished him out of the icy pond. Due to that, he was sick for a full half-year until he slowly recovered. What a piece of shit. After Jing Xiao finished listening, he raised his hand and crushed the teacup in it. Surely, in order to protect her son's reputation, that Madame Du expelled the servants and also let the others go while forbidding everyone else to mention this incident again. Otherwise, this kind of disgusting person who almost killed his own brother, the imperial family would not have approved of him being the heir of the Marquis of Beiwei. Inside his quarters, he paced with his hands clasped behind his back. Then, he turned around and said to Steward Yun, "There are two things I need you to do right now. First, go investigate the places that Mu Lingbao frequented, where he usually go, what are his interests and the people he's friends with. The second one, look for some people in the capital to spread words that the fourth Prince Jingyu likes to eat raw meat and no need to elaborate on that." Steward Yun understood the first matter, but what was that about the fourth prince liking to eat raw meat? Doesn't Prince Jingyu like the raw fish meat that comes as tribute from the eastern coastal areas? Although, all you have to do is omit that it was fish meat. Jing Xiao hooked his lips and smiled coldly. This is nothing more than slightly distorting the truth, who didn't know how to do so. If he could kill 500 captured soldiers and have it turned into slaughtering 100,000 prisoners of war, he wondered how would the fourth prince's little craving would be passed on and become what? This truly made one wait in anticipation. After Jing Xiao had people release the rumor, he just stayed at home every day to accompany his wife, practice his sword, read books, and enjoyed these rare leisurely days. Meanwhile, Mu Hanjiang had also finished reviewing the 3 years' worth of accounting books of the Prince Cheng's household. Looking at the monthly allowances on the account book, the secondary consort got 50 taels, and so in that case, him as the official prince consort should be getting at least 80 taels of silver as monthly allowance. The issue of him having no money at hand would be resolved in this way. Mu Hanjiang closed the last book and lightly exhaled a breath of air. This was much more than the monthly salary he would have gotten as a successful candidate in the imperial provincial examination. "Yunzu, you take this and fetch my last month's allowance." He suddenly remembered that he haven't received his allowance for last month as he handed a document over to Yunzu. Although it was very meager, it was still some form of income. "The amount that you will retrieve will just count as yours." "Really?" Yunzu immediately became spirited. "Many thanks to the prince consort." He pulled the paper close to his chest and ran out joyfully. "Young master." Lan Xian rushed in. "What's wrong?" Mu Hanjiang gestured for her to speak slowly. "Today, Grandmother Zhou's young daughter came over looking for you. She was stopped by the imperial guards at the side door, so the servant spoke to her by the door." Lan Xian spoke in panic and was somewhat incoherent. "What on earth happened?" Mu Hanjiang frowned. "Did anything happen to her or her family?" Grandma Zhou was his old wet nurse. Having her young daughter to run over to look for the young master who had already married out, they definitely must have run into some trouble. Her son broke his leg the day before yesterday and she didn't have the money to see a doctor. All the people in the village said that they were a family of old and disabled people, and they shouldn't get to live and eat for free, wanting to drive them out. Afterward, Lan Ting, who had rushed over, continued the report lest Lan Xian's stupid mouth said something that would anger the young master. "She came to find young master in the hopes of borrowing some silver from you." "I understand, you may go." Mu Hanjiang pursed his lips. He didn't have any money at hand at this moment. There were some jewelries in his dowry, but he had just married in. Pawning off his dowry would be like hitting his husband's face, it was something he absolutely could not do. In the garden, Jing Xiao was dressed in white martial clothing from head to toe, and a long sword danced naturally around him like flowing water. After he finished a set of sword exercises, Jing Xiao began to put things away and just happened to see his own wife standing on the side of the rockery. He threw the sword to a servant girl on the side with one movement, and while taking a cloth towel to wipe his sweat, he walked to Mu Hanzhang's side. When he saw his appearance of wanting to say something but hesitating, he lightly smiled and asked, "Jun Qing, is there something the matter?" Mu Hanzhang pursed his lips and lowered his eyes, quietly asking, "Can you lend me 100 taels?" End chapter. The Wife is First. Volume 1, Planning Ahead. Chapter 17, Rumors. Jing Xiao blanked out for half a day until he finally reacted to the fact that his prince consort was asking to borrow money from him. He couldn't help but knit his brows. Then, he pulled Mu Hanzhang to go to the study in the Fenga Pavilion. He took out a small ebony box with golden engravings on it and gave it to him, then said, "Make do with these first. If it's not enough, come tell me again. There was a mishap in my old wet nurse's family, and I don't have any money on hand." Mu Hanzhang lowered his head. "When the taxes are received from my village, I will return it to you." As he spoke, he opened the small ebony box. Inside was about 100 taels in both gold and silver taels. There was also a stack of silver banknotes for 1,000 taels each, about 5 banknotes in total. "Would you care to say that again?" Upon hearing him, Jing Xiao slowly walked up, controlled anger was emitting out of him. He reached out and pinched Mu Hanzhang's chin, forcing him to look up at him. Mu Hanzhang was startled and stared woodenly at Jing Xiao, who had seemed to have lost his temper. He realized that it was wrong to speak about returning money in front of his husband. He licked his lips and said, "My village's harvest is not good, so these 5,000 taels. I'm afraid that I won't be able to return it in 10 or even 20 years. This was clearly an excuse to go back on his word and not return the money, yet Jing Xiao's mood strangely got better upon hearing it. However, he still pinched his husband's chin and turned his face a few times before saying, "If you need something, then come find me. It's my responsibility to support you anyway." After saying that, he kissed the lips that had been pursed just a moment ago. Then with great vitality, he went out to continue practicing his sword. Mu Hanzhang looked at the ebony box in his hands and lightly sighed. Taking out 100 taels, he had Lan Ting bring an imperial guard with her and go to his old nurse's farm village. Then, Mu Hanzhang looked at this rather generous pocket money and his thoughts began to flow. The dowry that was given to him by the Marquis of Beiwei estate, if not a wasteland, were fields that yielded poor harvest. Not even one of the shops that could be found in the capital could be found there. Mu Hanzhang's birth mother was born a merchant's daughter. Although he hadn't been able to learn it as well as his mother, for things like finding where to get raw materials, working on the accounts and running a business, he had the ability to do all of them. These 5,000 taels given by Jing Xiao was enough for him to set up a restaurant in the capital. He could also just take out a portion of it to buy a small shop, so at the very least he was unlikely to go so far as to spend all the money without generating any income. After carefully putting away the ebony box, Mu Hanzhang decided to go out for these 2 days and see what kind of suitable business he could do. As a nobleman in this world, he must settle down and get on with his own pursuits. After coming up with this idea, Mu Hanzhang's mood became better. Of course, there was another thing that made him happy. That was, today being the 15th day of the 3rd month. According to how it was arranged last time in the flower book, today Jing Xiao should be going to the secondary consort's quarters. These few nights, Jing Xiao was always wrapped around him, kissing and hugging him. He was also a man, he knew how easy it would be for things to go out of control if it kept going on like this, so he was very apprehensive every day, waiting until Jing Shao fell asleep first before he can go to sleep himself in relief. After dinner, Jing Shao scooted over to his wife wanting to do some things to aid in digestion. Mu Hanjiang glanced meaningfully towards Duo Fu, who embarrassedly scrunched up his steamed bun-like face and with light cough said, "Your Highness, in accordance with the Prince Consort's arranged appointments in the Flower Book a few days ago, today His Highness should stay the night with the secondary consort's courtyard." Jing Shao looked up and saw the scrunched-up face of Duo Fu and asked, "The Flower Book? How was it arranged?" "Every month, for the first half His Highness will stay in the East Courtyard and for the second half in the West Courtyard. The secondary consort will get 9 days, and the other concubine gets 3 each." Mu Hanjiang took out the Flower Book for him to see. Jing Shao frowned and declared, "I'm not in the mood tonight." After saying that, he yawned and climbed into bed. Mu Hanjiang was unable to do anything about it. Internally, he thought that he might have practiced his swordmanship for too long today and didn't think much about this. After reading a book for some time, he went to bed as well. Who would have imagined that once he got in, he would be pressed down under Jing Shao with a flip of his body. "Your Highness," Mu Hanjiang's body immediately tensed up. Jing Shao raised his hand and with a pull of his hand, the bed curtain fell immediately. Mu Hanjiang became even more nervous with both his hands pushing away Jing Shao's shoulders. Didn't this person say that he was not in the mood tonight? He felt that the reaction of the person under him was extremely interesting. Jing Shao slowly slid over and kissed him on the side of his neck, suckling gently. Then he looked up only to find that his wife's eyes were tightly closed with his delicate and long eyelashes kept trembling. He couldn't bear to frighten him again, so he turned over and took him into his arms. Then he said, "If you let me touch a bit, I'll let you off tonight." Hearing such straightforward words, Mu Hanjiang's face rapidly turned red. "Touch, touch where?" "Well, I kissed you here last time," Jing Shao said, a finger circling on his beautiful collarbone. He felt that the body in his embrace was a little ticklish, shrinking away. He gently pulled apart the lapels of the soft inner robes he wore and said, "Let's just go down a little, okay?" Mu Hanjiang bit his lower lip in distress, not knowing how to answer. Jing Shao conveniently took it as him tacitly agreeing and elatedly using his wolf paws to reach into the lapels of the other's clothes. Using his big and lightly caul-used hands, he gently stroked that snowy chest. Jing Shao sighed at how nice the skin felt under his hands and at the same time, felt clearly the location of 2 little beans. Mu Hanjiang's back faced Jing Shao, and he tightly grasped the bed sheets with one hand, letting that hand wander around on his own body, until 2 fingers suddenly pinched a small bean. Don't. A burst of tingling sensations exploded through his body centered around that one point. His body trembled uncontrollably, and finally, he couldn't help but press down that misbehaving hand. With regards to how touching a bit turned into pinching, Jing Shao did not show any remorse at having been caught. He smiled and kissed the forehead of the person in his arms, who was beginning to sweat. He covered him with the quilt and gathered him into his arms, then very happily drifted off to sleep after rubbing against him a few times. And this situation continuously went on for the next few days. Every night, Jing Shao would either declare that he was not in the mood or that he was not tired yet until it became too late. Either way, the final result was that he would stay the night in the East Courtyard. Mu Hanjiang guessed that Jing Shao perhaps did not like Lady Song, so he did not press the matter further. He only considered assigning a few more days to the other 2 concubines next month. Originally, Jing Shao was supposed to return to court on the 18th of the 3rd month, but he wrote a memorandum and requested an extension for a few more days. Thus, in the morning of the 20th day of the 3rd month, His Highness Prince Chen was still sleeping soundly on his wife's bed. Upon waking up early in the morning, Mu Hanjiang could only regard the big hand that made its way to his chest, again, with a helpless sigh. He reached out and took the appendage out from within his lapel and slowly sat up. Upon being moved, Jing Xiao dazedly reached out his hand and felt around, hugged the waist of the other man, rubbed him close, then closed his eyes again to continue to sleep. Don't you have to go to a morning practice today? Why are you still not getting up? Mu Hanzhong helplessly nudged him a few times. Don't worry about it. Jing Xiao muttered, burying his face into the other's waist. You'll have to go to morning court session tomorrow. It's better to finish dealings with things today. Mu Hanzhong looked at the one ear that had been revealed and couldn't help but reach out his hand and tug at it. Renfeng's accent showed that he's not someone from the capital. How did he become the commander of your personal guards? He was originally a great swordsman from the Jianghu. Due to lack of funds, he washed his hands off the life of an outlaw and followed me to work in proper business. Jing Xiao opened his eyes and lay flat on the bed. Jianghu? Like those great heroes in the legends and novels? That kind of thing actually exists. Mu Hanzhong wondered after hearing these words and could not help but be curious. The Jianghu really does exist, but it is not as exaggerated as in the books. Jing Xiao rolled out of bed and stretched out. Next time, I will take you to go see those heroes of the Jianghu. He was preparing to have Renfeng begin to recruit capable people from the Jianghu to become soldiers. In accordance to what he had experienced from the previous life, in the 14th year of the Hongzheng era, which was next year, the campaign against the vassal kings would begin. Before that happened, he ought to make thorough preparations. When Jing Xiao went out, Mu Hanzhong, who was left with nothing to do, also went out with Yunzu to walk around. The main street in the capital was always bustling with noise and excitement every day. The elderly went to wine shops, pawn shops, or antique shops, while the young ones went to little novelty shops, candy stalls and so on. Young master, it's getting late. We should find a place to eat. Yunzu suggested as he touched his stomach, which had gotten so hungry it became flat. While they were outside, he couldn't address him as prince consort and thus went along with Hao Lanting, and the others addressed him as young master. Mu Hanzhong smiled and looked at the gluttonous Yunzu and asked, where should we go to eat? Naturally, we should go to Wei restaurant. Yunzu became spirited as he continued, going right now is the best time. If we go later, then there'll be no more seats. While Mu Hanzhong didn't go out often, he had still heard of Wei restaurant. The restaurant had only opened 2 years ago, but because the cuisine from the Central Plains was especially delicious, that establishment have always been very prosperous. The decoration inside the Wei restaurant was not very refined, but it was clean and orderly. There were quite a lot of tables and chairs that was set up. It must be because the business was so good that they added some more tables. Soon after they sat down, around them people began to continuously sit down until before long, the restaurant had become full. Young master, do you know who the owner of this place? Yunzu scooted over to Mu Hanzhong's ear and whispered. Who is it? Mu Hanzhong took a sip of tea and his gaze fell on the young shopkeeper behind the counter who was looking down and was calculating bills. That person has a tall stature with strong square face, and he was wearing a long bright green robes which made a truly strange sight. That person is the male wife of the assistant minister of the Ministry of Revenue. Yunzu enigmatically added that this assistant minister of the Ministry of Revenue was from the south, who was handsome and of short stature, while this male wife of his was someone from the north, whose physique was tall and powerful. In court, many of his colleagues made not a small amount of joke about the assistant minister of revenue about this. Oh! Hearing this, Mu Hanzhong's eyes gleamed. Seeing as the assistant minister of the Ministry of Revenue's wife can open a restaurant, then he should be able to open a few shops and have there be no gossip about it, right? Thinking about it in this way, Mu Hanzhong somewhat came up with a few thoughts about becoming friends with this shopkeeper. However, he didn't know how Jing Xiao's relations with the assistant minister of revenue were, so he should return first and ask him before taking any further action. Hey, have you heard? Recently, some people have heard that the fourth prince likes to eat human flesh. Someone from a neighboring table said in a low voice to his companions. That is so disgusting. I heard that he likes to eat placentas the most since it is big and soft, and that some other bigwigs also eat it. One person next to him corrected him. Haha, you guys don't know it as clearly as I do. A person from another table heard the conversation and laughed. Then in an exaggerated yet enigmatic manner, he added, the fourth prince was born with some kind of physical weakness, and that year there was a Taoist priest who said that in order for him to live for a long time, it is necessary for him to eat a bowl of raw baby's meat. Mu Hanjiang bowed his head and silently drank tea. He stayed there for about 2 hours and continuously heard the common people openly shared and discuss various rumors, including who would be marrying in as a male wife, political affairs, and such. Rumors about members of the imperial family spread the fastest. He wondered what words did Jing Shao exactly ask to be spread out for things to have unexpectedly became so bizarre. End chapter. The Wife is First. Volume 1, Planning Ahead. Chapter 18, The Humble Vice Minister. On the third year of Hongzheng era, 21st day of the third month, Prince Cheng returned to court. Jing Shao stood in the main hall of the dazzling imperial palace, looking at the faces he was perhaps familiar or unfamiliar with in front of him. He only felt how it was a lifetime ago. That year, he had been kneeling in the middle of the hall, listening to everyone enumerate each and every one of his criminal charges. The Minister of Revenue accused him of selling salt distribution license for profit. The Minister of Works criticized him for carrying out private large-scale constructions without permission, and even the imperial censor charged him with the slaughtering of prisoners of war and deceiving the civilians. But even more people charged him with deceiving the sovereign with the intention of plotting a rebellion. He looked at each of those people's faces one by one. Duke Mao was the fourth prince's future father-in-law, the Count of Yongchang followed his own elder brother, and both the ministers of revenue and works were the emperor's own people. As for the rest, they mostly just blindly followed the crowd. Most of those relatives should naturally be suppressed later on. As for the two ministers, Jing Shao had set his sights on the assistant minister of revenue. During that time, the only person willing to justly voice a sentence on his behalf aside from his elder brother was this lowly assistant minister. This man did not have the desire to be a corrupt official and was not rigid with his way of serving the people. 5 years ago, he was the top scorer of the imperial examination and his career experienced a smooth road, all the way to getting promoted to assistant minister position. Up until Jing Shao had run into trouble, he had not been promoted again. Perhaps he could rope in this person to his side and pave his way to the minister position. Jing Shao was deep in thought when his elder brother who stood next to him suddenly poked him with his elbow. He suddenly lifted his head up and found that his imperial father and many of the courtiers were looking at him. The imperial censor Fan Ji was currently standing in the middle of the main hall. Rumors about the fourth prince, Jing Chen said between his teeth, making sure not to move his lips, reminding him in a quiet voice. Jing Shao understood then. He went forward a step and said, "This third prince believes that the talks of the ignorant masses are merely just idle chatter during leisure times and should not be a cause for concern." This answer could be said to conform with the norms of society. Emperor Hongzheng turned his gaze onto Jing Chen. Jing Chen walked forth and said, "People from ancient times say a tree invites birds to nest and an empty cave invites a gust of wind. The wind bends to the one who commands it. Since there are these kinds of rumors amongst the people, then there is definitely a cause, too. A clarification should be presented as soon as possible, so as not to taint the reputation of younger brother the fourth prince." The two brothers' answers were quite opposite. It was clear that they had not known about this beforehand. Even if they had known about it, they hadn't discussed it. Emperor Hongzheng nodded with satisfaction and stated, "Jing Yu, what do you have to say about this?" The fourth prince Jing Yu stepped forth and knelt down below the dais, then said, "This fourth prince fears that the cause is because before the new year, vassals near the eastern coast offered up some fresh ocean fish cut into thin slices to be eaten raw, as it was delectable enough. This one found it very delicious, so took a bit more of it. Unexpectedly, the servants in the palace spread misinformation which stirred up such a big uproar. This one could only plead for leniency. At this point, the fourth prince have not entered the court for a long while. He was in charge of the matter regarding the tribute from foreign lands. Naturally, the strange and rare items he received from overseas in the east and the west were quite substantial. The imperial family sets the example for the rest of the country. Each and every one of your actions will naturally be noticed by the civilians. How can you be so attached to things like food? Emperor Hongzhen was a little angry. The thing that the people within the imperial family should avoid the most was indulging too excessively in something. Younger brother, the fourth prince, really has a knack for chancing upon good food, and such a strange thing that this first prince has never seen before. The eldest prince Jingrong said with a smile that was not a smile, making Emperor Hongzhen's brow wrinkled even more tightly. Except for the emperor, no one else should have the privilege to enjoy the tributes from foreign lands as much as they wished. The implicit meaning behind the eldest prince's words were quite far-reaching. Imperial father, please forgive this son. This one only obtained 2 fish from imperial mother's residence and was not really being gluttonous. Jingyu glared at the eldest prince, who felt the issue wasn't made worse enough and quickly kowtowed while trying to explain. Humph. Emperor Hongzhen coldly snorted. From his point of view, for these kind of rumors to spread in the capital was completely the result of the fourth prince's ostentatiously display in public. As for the matter regarding the foreign tributes, it should be thoroughly investigated. In the end, Emperor Hongzhen decreed that the fourth prince was forbidden to go out for a month and must stay inside his quarters to reflect upon his mistakes. Although this punishment was not severe, a bad impression about the fourth prince had been created in Emperor Hongzhen's heart, which was enough. This rumor was spread by Jing Xiao. Originally, he just wanted to cover up the rumors circulating about himself and the fourth prince, whom he disliked, was a collateral damage to achieve that. However, he didn't think that it would actually develop to this extent, which was truly an unexpected fortune. He secretly shot a glance at his expressionless big brother by his side, and suddenly thought that perhaps when they decided on this course of action, his brother had already considered this outcome. When the court was dismissed, the 2 brothers did not say a word. They just looked at each other and each went on their own way. Jing Xiao thought a little ruefully about how his brother was truly more suitable for that position than himself. At the same time, he thought about going back to his wife to properly discuss what had happened today, while doing some intimate kissing and touching. Your Highness, would you like to go directly back to the estate? The carriage driver pulled open the cabin curtain and asked. Jing Xiao thought about it. Today he got up quite early in the morning and just ate a bowl of porridge and a pancake. As he thought that, he ordered, "Go to Huawei restaurant to eat breakfast." Your Highness, Huawei restaurant is not open in the morning. Yun Song reminded him. It doesn't matter, just go. Jing Xiao put down the curtain and leaned on the soft pillows to rest his eyes. This soft pillow was especially instructed to be put there by Mu Hanjiang, who felt that because Jing Xiao had to get up early, he would definitely get sleepy, and so this way, he could just sleep in the carriage for a bit. Huawei restaurant indeed did not sell breakfast, but the shopkeeper would still come quite early in order to tidy up things in preparation for opening the business for the day. Moreover, he would also be preparing breakfast for his husband, who was also just returning from the morning court session. The Assistant Minister of Revenue was surnamed Xiao with given name Yuan, while his courtesy name was Hongji. Speaking of this, he was actually a family member of the second prince's princess consort, who came from the Marquis of Dingnan's household. To be more accurate, the Marquis of Dingnan's clan and the Xiao family shared a common ancestor. However, the familial relation was about 5 generations apart. Moreover, Xiao Yuan was virtuous and noble. From the very beginning, he was unwilling to climb up in ranks using familial relationships. The doors of the Huawei restaurant were indeed only half opened, with a shop assistant sweeping the front of the door. Jing Xiao walked in with his hands clasped behind his back. "Hongji, welcome back." The shopkeeper of tall stature was dressed in a light blue plain cotton clothes, came out of the kitchen in the back while holding a steaming basket of small stuffed dumplings in his hand. After seeing Jing Shao, he stared blankly for a second and then immediately laughed as he said, "Apologies esteemed guest, but Wei restaurant has not yet opened for business." "Greetings," Jing Shao said with a smile. "This one is a colleague of Xiao Yuan's who came over to discuss things with him." The shopkeeper frowned slightly, but he let Jing Shao have a seat. He served him some dumplings and a bowl of glutinous rice porridge. "Fu Ren has really honed your craft. This one has also taken a male wife, but he wasn't as skilled as Fu Ren with cooking," Jing Shao said after he ate a dumpling. As soon as the thin as paper skin entered his mouth, the fresh and fragrant meat filling immediately left a savory taste on his mouth along with the broth. "This one don't know how to read many words and can only cook. Honorable Sir's wife is a man of great wisdom and knowledge, one must not compare such an uncouth individual like me with him," the shopkeeper said with a smile. Jing Shao paused. This person actually knows his identity. Shortly after he smiled back and said, "Fu Ren is indeed outstandingly witty. How should I address you?" Male wives were different from female wives. In the end, they are still men. Other people could directly ask their full names and not offend. "Your Highness is too polite. This civilian is surnamed Zhou, with the name of the single word Jin." Jing Shao liked Zhou Jin's straightforward personality and he couldn't help but chat with him a little more. Therefore, when Xiao Yuan returned sitting and shaking about on a sedan chair, he saw a certain imperial prince, whom he himself had not interacted with before, was eating his soup dumplings and drinking the rice porridge from his family's restaurant while chatting ever so happily with his wife. He could only feel the blue veins on his forehead throb as he saluted, "This humble official greets Your Highness Prince Cheng." "Haha, Assistant Minister Xiao is back. This one just passed by on my way and came over for a free meal from your place. These dumplings are delicious, Official Xiao has such good fortune," Jing Shao said as the last soup dumpling was stuffed into his mouth. With his mouth full, he asked, "Zhou Dagger, are there still more?" "Yes." Zhou Jin smiled and turned around to go back into the kitchen to get more dumplings. "Does His Highness need something?" The humble assistant minister, who naturally had a fair complexion, now had a face that was even blacker than the bottom of a pot. Did this person understand proper etiquette at all? Actually daring to call other people's wives Zhou Dagger in front of their husband. These two shouldn't have been familiar with each other from before, right? Actually, it's nothing urgent. This one just heard that official Xiao and Zhou Fu Ren's feelings are very sincere. Jing Shao paused. He lifted his eyes and looked all around. He leaned towards Xiao Yuan's ear and lowered his voice. "This prince just wanted to consult you about how to make one's male wife no longer be afraid of those bedtime activities." Xiao Yuan blanked out. He looked at Jing Shao's seemingly sincere countenance, and his mouth, which was originally frowning, perked up. "It turned out to be this matter, then Your Highness has found the right person." And so, the ordinarily silent assistant minister suddenly became a master of Confucian rites, talking non-stop with Jing Shao on the subject of how to subdue a male wife. When Zhou Jin came out with 2 baskets of dumplings, he saw the 2 men close together muttering about something and even snickering from time to time. He shook his head helplessly and adoringly looked at Xiao Yuan, who was so full of excitement that his whole face turned red. He turned around and went to the back kitchen commanding the workers to organize the ingredients for the day. Sometimes the friendship between men was established in an instant, such as Xiao Yuan and Jing Shao. After they finished breakfast, the conversation between the two had already become, "Hongji, in the future when Zhou Dagger has time, let him take my family's Jun Qing out for a walk sometimes. I'm afraid he will be bored to death being stuck indoors all by himself." "Your Highness, don't worry. You can leave this to me. Have you memorized all the methods I told you about? And, if this matter work out, I'll invite you to go out for a drink." Jing Shao left perfectly content while Xiao Yuan elatedly wandered to the kitchen in the back to see his wife. "What did you talked about with Prince Chang?" Your face is so red. Zhou Jin pinched his husband's chin and carefully examined him. Humph. Xiao Yuan shook off his hand and angrily said, I still want to ask you, what did you say to him before I arrived? Why did he even call you Zhou Daggerer before he left? Let me kiss you once and I'll tell you. Zhou Jin hugged him and gotten into a position as if he were about to kiss him. Xiao Yuan hurriedly pushed the taller than him by an entire head wife away and furiously said, since you won't tell me the truth, you are punished to wear baby pink robes tomorrow. After saying this, he flung his sleeve and walked outside. I don't have baby pink colored robes. Zhou Jin said helplessly. Every time this happened, his husband would demand that he wear a variety of garishly colored clothing, making the entire capital think that the Huawei restaurant's shopkeeper had a strange personality. Once I'm off duty, I will go buy a set for you. Xiao Yuan waved his hand and went to the Ministry of Revenue in a good mood. I didn't even do anything last night, Zhou Jin muttered, but shortly afterwards, he hooked up his lips into a smirk. Since he had to wear baby pink, then tonight he would have to make the trade-off worth it. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Jing Shao returned to the palace, thinking about the various methods that Xiao Yuan introduced to him, and walked towards the east courtyard. Just before he arrived in front of the small study, he heard the grating voice of Lady Song saying, the rules of the prince residence are so. Even if you are the prince consort, you cannot break them, otherwise the residence would become a mess in the future. It is just a temporary residence for a subordinate, their living costs can just come from my portion of the monthly allowances. Mu Han Zhang's voice was still mild, but one could hear that there was a hint of anger in it. The prince consort really speaks quite well. Forgive this concubine for being blunt, but the prince consort was just married in on the 8th day of the 3rd month, your allowance for this month was basically non-existence. Song Lingxing did not yield an inch, and the sound of her voice was a bit sharp. It made Jing Shao, who was originally in a good mood, instantly become so angry that it was as if his head were on fire. End chapter.